Hey there, folks. I'm Mark, in affiliation with Spectrum Pulse, and we got ourselves a cooldown week. Apparently that means Chris Brown, and it's Billboard BREAKDOwn. I don't remember. Not gonna lie, I'm starting to have more issues with the back to normal reset weeks that occur after album bombs rather than album bombs themselves. At least during the album bombs, I've got a way of handling them, and if there's some consistent quality, it almost becomes streamlined. Whereas here, look, it's not all bad, but the biggest presence, as I said, the mini album bomb from Chris Brown. Joy. Now, of course, that doesn't really touch on our top 10, no surprise. Where to my surprise, as it was by Harry Styles, once again reclaimed the number one, and it's for the exact same reasons of controlling the margins on sales and streaming, even despite lagging on radio to First Class by Jack Harlow at number 2. But he's never been able to make up the difference, and now his radio looks like it's peaked. Now, this opens up the door for About Damn Time by Lizzo up to number 3. She has better sales, ascending radio. If she can just pull the streaming up a bit, she'll have a clear shot for the top spot, as I've been predicting. Certainly more so than Wait For You by Future, Thames and Drake slipping down to number 4, even though its radio run is surprisingly decent and the streaming is still there. Then we got Jimmy Cooks by Drake featuring 21 Savage knocked off the top spot to number 5, which is pretty much here on streaming for a second week. But again, I'm not sure how much that's going to translate into long-term traction without the radio. Whereas Running Up That Hill by Kate Bush actually recovered up to number 6 because her streaming rebounded and it's been shipped to radio in a big way. We're now 5 weeks in, this is showing no signs of slowing down. We might have to have a conversation about this potentially making a year-end list, and that is something I never could have expected. But then we got the expected breakthrough into the top 10 of Break My Soul by Beyonce at number 7. It's also receiving the push in all channels, but I'm a little bit surprised how it feels a bit muted given Beyonce's star power. You'd think there'd be a little bit more behind this, especially at the radio, who loves more legacy acts. Then we got Me Porto Bonito by Bad Bunny and Chencho Corleone rebounding back at number 8, again pretty much just on streaming, and also bringing along Heat Waves by Glass Animals to number 9 because residual radio just refuses to let this go. But it was enough to overtake Glimpse of Us by Joji at number 10, which actually stayed stable on streaming, but again, that's all it's got. And that leads us to our losers and dropouts, in which in the latter category, the majority of it's just Drake's album bomb, but also a couple bigger tracks like AA by Walker Hayes that absolutely clinched its year-end list spot, She's All I Wanna Be by Tate McRae, which will probably get there, but it's close, and N95 by Kendrick Lamar just never getting close to getting there. A chunk of our losers are Drake as well. Sticky fell down to 17, Massive slipped to 44, Falling Back lived up to its name at 64, and Text Go Green hit 94, but You Dig by Lil Baby, 42 Doug and V's also fell off the debut to 82. The rest are continued losers that's kind of hard for me to complain about. Bam Bam by Camila Cabello and Ed Sheeran, it's on its way out naturally at 47, having clinched its year-end list spot. She Likes It by Russell Dickerson and Jake Scott is sputtering out at 93, and Music for a Sushi Restaurant by Harry Styles is at 96 because, dear God, this song is awful. I'm fairly certain that's not the reason. I'm gonna take that it is. But of course, in the aftermath, we will get our returns and gains. Well, in the former, we only have Plan B by Megan Thee Stallion back at 100, but there are a lot of gains here. And the majority of them are in country. New Truck by Dylan Scott at 87, 7500 OBO by Tim McGraw at 77, Last Night Lonely by John Party at 74, Tomorrow Me by Luke Combs at 66, 5'9" by Tyler Hubbard at 63, Rockin' a Hard Place and Fall in Love by Bailey Zimmerman at 61 and 46 respectively, Trouble with the Heartbreak by Jason Aldean at 43, Like I Love Country Music by Kane Brown at 31, and the biggest pleasant surprises to date, Damn Straight by Scotty McCreery at 42, Something in the Orange by Zach Bryan holding on at 39, and She Had Me at Heads Carolina by Cole Swindell up big to 38. Of course, it's not all country. Love Me More by Sam Smith got a boost to 85, I Ain't Worried by One Republic wormed its way up to 62, When You're Gone by Shawn Mendes recovered to 59. What Happened to Virgil by Lil Durk and Gunna hit 58. Mommy by Becky G and Karol G hit 52. In a Minute by Lil Baby rose to 51. And Doja Cat saw a nice turnaround for Vegas up to 34. I gotta wonder how much this is gonna hold after the movie about Elvis has its run. I wonder there. But alright, let's get to our new arrivals where it's gonna be a lot less pleasant. Starting off with number 98, Possessive by Chris Brown featuring Lil Wayne and BLEU. Alright, we got 5 Chris Brown songs, and I'm already surprised he got another R&B artist to join him on a song. Not always a good sign, especially given that the former YoungBoy has the first verse. But there's not much of a risk of one overshadowing the other. Both BLEU and Chris Brown are smothered in so much clunky auto-tune around the spare production and chalky beat that you realize that they barely even attempt to blend their harmonies well on the hook. And given that BLEU is playing resentful, guilt-tripping ex who's not over this girl, and Chris Brown actually goes on the offensive and calls her crazy and that the money changed her, well, it kind of all cancels out, especially as that they both lean on that line that they can get possessive and aggressive, but the girl is totally into it, right? Honestly, Lil Wayne by far comes out the best. Yeah, autotune isn't great for him either, but he at least is willing to give this girl some space, some modicum of respect. Somehow he's the most mature guy in the room all of a sudden. When did that happen? Still isn't any damn good. I mean, I'm not the target audience, but it's this oily and pushy in a really unpleasant way, neither attractive nor that interesting. Next, number 95, Did Shit to Me by Lil Durk featuring Doodie Low.
Hey, they ain't never did shit to me. Why that nigga talking like he talk, they ain't did shit to me.
So Lil Durk put out the deluxe edition of 7220. I guess he was done working songs from the original, but I'm not sure adding more tracks is the fix to solve a project that already felt samey and overlong. Anyway, this is one of 2 debuts, and I was inclined to be skeptical, but this is generally fine. The faded melody isn't all that interesting behind the sharper drill percussion, but it's pretty well produced. Lil Durk still has a lot of intensity, and for a first introduction for me to Doodie Low, he's pretty credible. His voice is kind of haggard but has some character, and he's got solid back and forth chemistry with Durk. It works effectively. I kind of wish the song built up to a little more. Basically, they're calling out everyone who talks hard and rap but has never actually done anything, but that kind of feels like tempting fate, especially given the rough couple of years that Lil Durk has had, so yeah, I mean, it's okay, but should be better. Number 92, Addicted by Chris Brown featuring Lil Baby.
Put your pennies over there, don't wanna step on them. You know why, cause I'm addicted to it.
Hey, if he's gonna call in the big name favors, why not go for broke here and put Lil Baby's verse right up front, especially as that's pretty much the only reason why any audience is here. I mean, it's not like the spare twinkles do much for the cheap trap percussion, but Lil Baby can write this verse in his sleep, especially as he actually talks about courting this girl, building some trust, which is acknowledging that it's something that he needs to improve upon. Then Chris Brown happens, where he goes off about how he's addicted to the pussy, and even if his flow on the post-chorus is kind of decent, he then drops the line in his verse, "She high off Whitney and Bobby, it's a party." You know, for as much as Chris Brown has made a thing about respecting classic R&B, that he wouldn't go there, but it turns out his word is as good as his slapdash nasal rapping. I mean, you've heard the best of the song if you heard the Lil Baby verse. Don't stick around for anything else. Number 91, Burglars and Murderers by Lil Durk featuring ESTG.
Hang with the burglars, turn to murderers. Hang with the burglars, turn to murderers. Hang with the burglars, turn to murderers. Hang with the burglars, turn to murderers.
Alright, this time we're getting a much more prominent piano and synth line off of a much heavier roiling bass and drill percussion. This is probably the most distinctive for the beat switches around the hooks that feel like a different song collided with this. It's kind of a bizarre change-up that I wish anyone here explored more effectively. Unfortunately, we've got ESTG this time, who's getting drowned out by his own ad-libs on his verse, and a flow that's not quite as refined as it needs to be. And it's not like the content helps either, with Lil Durk's paranoia is ramping ramping up alongside the gangland violence to the point where he's watching his girl pee so there's no faked pregnancy scare. I mean, I understand why there might be some paranoia in his situation. He came up from nothing, he doesn't want to see his fleeting success get stolen by the streets, women, or the feds. But between that line and the whole hook about turning burglars into murderers that's repeated ad nauseum, again, I feel like this is tempting fate in the wrong direction, and the song's not quite good enough to excuse it. Number 79, We Warm Embrace by Chris Brown.
And make it last forever. Girl, I catch a glimpse of heaven.
So this was being planned as a second single. It's being advertised as one of the smoother tracks from the album. It actually samples an early 90s R&B song written by Teddy Riley. That's enough to get me in the door. Hell, Chris Brown doesn't even swear on the song. And when you get the supple popping percussion and the liquid synths and the guitar rollick, this is the sort of groove that Chris Brown should honestly use a hell of a lot more. The problem is that his vocals are so over-processed that the song never develops any sense of intimacy. This is a bedroom ballad, and it's never played with any subtlety, because Chris Brown is still the guy who's going to conclude his bridge by saying that after they're done making love, she needs to clean it up. Charming. I mean, with the instrumental, this had potential. I mean, shame Chris Brown fumbled the execution. Not surprising. Number 78, Psychic by Chris Brown featuring Jack Harlow.
She gets me every time. She might be psychic, but I like it.
I mean, you would think that Jack Harlow would have the good sense to avoid working with Chris Brown. His career seems to be on the upswing, and this is not a favor he needs to deliver. But Brown did show up on Jack Harlow's major label debut in 2020, so now with this, how does Chris Brown's vocal mastering still sound so goddamn plastic, even beyond getting smothered in autotune? It just feels glaringly out of place on a track with more restrained melody and percussion, where overstuffed with screechy overdubs, he's trying to overcompensate. And then there's the lyrics, where he thinks this girl catching anything that he's doing might be psychic, and yet he seems very weirdly peeved that she's defensive in that first verse when he challenges her. Brown, with your history, I think she's got every good reason to be. Thank God Jack Harlow seems to at least understand the vibes of the song. He's actually pretty good at this low-stakes hookup mold. His eye for detail and subtle flexes effectively lets him steal the song. I mean, not enough to save it, but I'll give him that. Number 76, Call Me Every Day by Chris Brown featuring Wizkid.
For your love, I go pay, it ain't making my DJ song.
I guess I'm not surprised that this is the Chris Brown song that charted the highest. Wizkid's international presence would draw in that audience, especially with Afrobeat becoming more popular stateside. But hell, Chris Brown's barely a presence on the song. I would put money on this being Wizkid's originally, with Chris Brown even adopting an accent, trying to play for a similar vibe. And I'm a little conflicted on whether or not it works. For one, the production is very minimalistic, with the spare guitar and touches of saxophone before expanding on the outro, but the beat also feels a little uneven, kinda jerky, which kinda works for Wizkid's more restrained delivery, but this might also be the first case where Chris Brown actually outshines him. He's bringing a little bit more charisma and expressiveness, and forcing himself to stick closer to Wizkid's lane in terms of content prevents him from outright embarrassing himself, and the production's not even that bad either. So of all the Chris Brown songs this week, this is probably going to be the one that has the most legs, where Chris Brown is imitating another sound, and where there's already been better Afrobeat hits in recent months, so I can't see this sticking. Next. Number 72, From the D to the LBC by Eminem and Snoop Dogg. Okay, let me put aside all the NFT Bored Ape Yacht Club bullshit around the branding of this song. It's gross, it's so obviously a grift in order to drive attention to bullshit schemes that, given how fast cryptocurrency has collapsed, makes everyone still associated with it feel kind of behind the times. No, what I was intrigued by was the reunion of Snoop Dogg and Eminem. They had tension for a lot of stupid reasons. If we get a late career return to Bitch Please 2, I would take it. Granted, it's Eminem producing, not not Dr. Dre, so I had lower expectations, which might be why for some baffling reason we got this blown out drill percussion with a crushing bass groove off the faded haunted sample that's louder than the vocal lines. And it's kind of a shame because, well, Eminem drops into his triple time by the end of his verse, and I guess that's fine. It's like a gimmick at this point. He's not really saying much here either beyond flexing and various pot references. Snoop Dogg actually goes off on his verse with a sort of fast and tight flow that you almost forget he can deliver effortlessly, especially as he bends it ever so slightly to add some menacing character. Kinda sucks that the branding in the song is terrible because the actual track's pretty decent. Kinda think it should be a little bit smoother, but for something late career for the both of them, I think I'll take this. Number 67, Late to the Party, Fuck BT by Lil Nas X and YoungBoy Never Broke Again.
Cause bitch, I can't be late to the party. Yeah, you know we gotta.
Okay, it's possible for a few things to be true at the same time. It's absolutely true that Lil Nas X can have justified beef with BET for them getting agitated about the faux Satanism and him kissing one of his dancers at his performance last year. And if you want to dig into some underlying strands of homophobic religious conservatism that might exist within BET's executive branch, well, you can argue there is something there. It's also true that many of these award shows only have cultural capital because we choose to invest in them. And for Lil Nas X, who has leaned so hard on chart accomplishments and Grammys to then flip the script to troll here, can feel kind of disingenuous, even if he might have points. Granted, this would all be easier if this song didn't suck. Arguably one of the clunkiest things Lil Nas X has put on record to date, with minimal melody, overweight percussion, basically a running shitpost of flexing and sexual references designed to prod at any respectability politics, including shitting and farting. I mean, come on, dude. Also, YoungBoy Never Broke Again is here for stock flexing, and I'd argue that kind of muddies your message. There's a difference between homophobic institutions and the open calls to violence and goading dog shit YoungBoy's been putting on record for the past 6 to 8 months, which I'm sure Lil Nas X knows, and making that equivocation in the subtext is reckless as all hell. But in truth, a song like this is kind of self-defeating. You want to say that you're trolling, you don't care, tell them to fuck off, you don't have to make the song, and prove you care a hell of a lot more. Number 60, Carolina by Taylor Swift.
Ever go and things that only Carolina will ever know.
I feel like this is actually a little bit stranger than it actually is. Apparently the story is that Taylor Swift discovered they were adapting the 2018 novel for a movie, and she was such a fan of that book, she got together with Aaron Dessner to make a song for the soundtrack. A pretty big name tied to a film that's otherwise flown under the radar for me. So when I now say this is actually a really damn great song, where you can tell that Taylor Swift was really working to nail the homespun, creaking Appalachian sound that might have some more abstract writing and honestly is kind of closer to Ethel Cain or older, darker indie folk acts than someone like Lana Del Rey. She's not the only comparison point. It's a little bit surprising she placed it on a soundtrack where if you're not a diehard fan, you're probably gonna miss this. It's textured, understated, showed that Taylor Swift understands that the land itself is as much of a character in the novel than the actual murder mystery, which thematically is something I've always liked in this sort of storytelling, and just enough visceral details creep in to highlight the tactile, southern gothic dread of the whole thing. So yeah, it might be entirely up my alley, but if you're looking for another teaser after Folklore and Evermore into this territory, it delivers. Check this out. And finally, number 22, Left and Right by Charlie Puth featuring Jungkook.
I can feel you over here. You take up every corner of my mind.
What you gonna do now?
At this point, I'm not even surprised. Of course, Charlie Puth's biggest debut in recent memory comes with a collab with a member of BTS. It's an easy way to get some chart traction on sales alone. But fine, the song. In a word, it's not a bad self-contained idea, but it feels a little bit rougher than it needs to be. Yeah, some folks are going to be shocked by how Charlie Puth uses the hook to shift from left to right channels to emphasize this person's lingering presence in their mind, but that kind of works best when you have headphones on or a properly configured system. I'm not sure how well the musical idea will translate outside of that, and even then it's a bit of a gimmick, especially when you look outside of that and again there's not much here. Yeah, Charlie Puth and Jungkook have decent chemistry, and the hook is actually pretty good. But Charlie Puth as a producer has always cut corners, so the rougher edges in the percussion and the guitar don't especially blend well. It doesn't really match the horny vibes of the verses. And the vocal mixing is just not as sharp as it should be. There's a part of me that wants to call this a bit of a novelty song, but it's not really weird enough. It's not bad, but more of a curiosity. Not something I'm going to return to all that much, just say that. And that ends off a pretty odd week, where the best, Taylor Swift is just going to run away with it for Carolina. But honorable mentions going to From the D to the LBC by Eminem and Snoop Dogg, basically on Snoop Dogg's verse alone being sharp as all hell. Now the worst of the week, dishonorable mention is a Chris Brown tie, with Addicted with Lil Baby alongside Possessive with Lil Wayne and BLEU. But that's because the worst of the week is going to Late to the Party, Fuck BET by Lil Nas X and YoungBoy Never Broke Again. The sort of bad diss record where I kind of feel like they lost by default because they care too much and are trying to say they don't. Next week actually promises to be pretty quiet. We gotta hope for that, right? So stay tuned. But until then, I'm Mark, you're watching Billboard Breakdown, affiliated with Spectrum Pulse. And I'll see you next time.